You're watching Miami Temple Kids.
Good morning, guys, and happy Sabbath. Today is August 15th, and guess what? Look, it's Children's Sabbath at Miami Temple. I know, normally we would be in the sanctuary and we would have an amazing day, but things are different this year, so we have to change a little bit. But that doesn't mean that our children of our church are going to have any less than how we usually do. Right now, it's time for our Sabbath school lessons. Please remember, primary, juniors, and early teen classes have Zoom at 1 p.m. If you're interested in joining one of our Zoom classes, please email me at mtchildman@gmail.com, okay? mtchildman@gmail.com. After our Sabbath school lesson review, then you will have a little break to review the lesson with your children, and at 11 a.m. is our Children's Sabbath. Everything is going to be led by our children of Miami Temple. So for right now, let's sit back and watch our Miami Temple teachers do our Sabbath school lesson review. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Hi, my name is Aiden. My memory verse is, God will meet all your needs. Philippians 4:19. Have a happy Sabbath.
Elijah the prophet spoke to Ahab, the evil king of Israel, and gave him a message. There will be no dew or rain for the next few years unless I command it. This will certainly happen. Oh no! Then God told Elijah to go to a place near a stream. God said the ravens would provide food for Elijah to eat, so Elijah obeyed God. The ravens brought him bread and meat, and he drank water from the stream. After a while, the stream dried up because there was no rain in the land. Then God told Elijah to go to a small village. God said a widow in the town would provide for Elijah, so Elijah obeyed God. When Elijah got to the gate of the city, he saw a widow gathering wood. He called to her, "Please bring me a little water so I can drink." As she went to get it, he added, "Please bring me a piece of bread too." But the women told Elijah, "I don't have bread. I only have a little bit of flour and oil." The woman and her son were planning to eat one more meal before they died from hunger. "Don't be afraid," Elijah said. "Go and prepare the meal, but first bring me a small loaf of bread. Then make some for yourself and your son. God says you will not run out of flour or oil until rain comes again." So the woman prepared the meal. She, Elijah, and everyone in her household had enough to eat, and she did not run out of flour or oil, just like the Lord had said. Sometime later, the woman's son got sick, and he stopped breathing. Elijah took the boy upstairs and laid him on the bed. He cried out to God, stretched himself out over the boy 3 times, and cried out to God again. "Lord my God, please let this boy live again," Elijah prayed. The Lord listened to Elijah, and the boy's life came into him again. He was alive. Elijah led the boy to his mother. She said to Elijah, "Now I know you are a man of God, and the Lord really does speak through you."
Hello, my name's Arya, and I'm in the kindergarten class at Sabbath School. Speaking of the kindergarten class, do you want to hear the kindergarten class memory verse? Well, I can tell you. This memory verse comes from Psalm 68:35. You can find that at the Bible at your house. My God gives power and strength to his people. Bye. Mwah.
It's another Sabbath. Happy Sabbath, kindergartners. Now, boy, this story is, if it wasn't in the Bible, you wouldn't really believe this. But it really is in the Bible, and it's a true story. Now, remember, we've been talking about Elijah for the last 2 or so weeks. And now this is the last story I'm going to tell you about Elijah, because something wonderful is going to happen. I can't wait to tell you. Okay, let me pretend. Okay, this is something like a cloak. It's like a maybe like a jacket or just like a garment that you would wear over your clothes. And if the sun is too hot, maybe you put it on your head so the sun wouldn't hurt your head. Or if it's cold, you'd wrap it around you. Well, Elijah had one of those. And that's going to be in our story. So one morning, Elijah woke up. And a big smile stretched across his wrinkled face because today was the day. Today was going to be his last day on earth. Wait a minute. Why would that make him happy? If it's your last day on earth, that means you're going to die. But God told him it's going to be his last day because God was going to take him to heaven. Oh, he was so excited. So he got up and he saw his friend Elisha, who was like learning from him. So Elijah was the older one and Elisha was the younger one. Now Elisha wanted to learn everything about what Elijah was doing for God. And he wanted God to be with him just like he was with Elijah. So today was the day. And Elisha also knew that this was going to be Elijah's last day. And he didn't want to miss seeing what was going to happen. And then Elijah said, I am going to visit the school of the prophets. And you stay here. But Elisha said, oh no, I'm never going to leave you. So that was fine. They started walking. And as they walked along, they came to a river. As they came to this Jordan River, they realized that it was too deep to get across. Well, Elijah took off his cloak and he rolled it up and he hit the water with it. And the water just parted. And Elijah and Elisha walked across to the other side on dry land. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Elijah and Elisha kept walking. And Elisha kept his eyes on Elijah because he didn't want to miss what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, there was this wind. And then out of the sky came a flaming chariot. And it was made of fire. And Elijah started to go up from the ground into the chariot. Now, before this happened, Elisha had asked Elijah for something. Because Elijah said, Elisha, what would you like me to leave for you when I go to heaven? And Elisha said, I want a double portion of God's Spirit on me. And what does that mean? It means that Elisha wanted to do things for God just like Elijah did, but even more. So Elijah said, okay. So when Elijah was going up into the chariot, he threw down his cloak and Elisha picked it up. And when he picked it up, he looked into the sky, but he couldn't see the chariot or Elisha. All he could see was the sky. Elijah was gone. It was sad. But he knew Elijah had gone to heaven, so he wasn't too sad. But he was sad that his friend was gone. So he walked to Elijah's cloak, and as he was going back home, he came to the Jordan River again. Now remember, the river had come back together. So what did he do? He did what he saw Elijah do. He rolled up Elijah's cloak, and he hit the water with it. And what do you think happened? Exactly. The water just went apart, and he walked across on dry land. And now he knew that God's Spirit would be with him because he could do what Elijah had done. He knew that God was going to bless him just like he blessed Elijah. Now, if you want to find this story for yourself, you have to look in your Bible in 1 Kings, and you're going to find the story of Elijah and Elisha in 1 Kings. Now, the memory verse says, God gives, what did I say? God gives power. I want to see some fists. Power and strength. I want to see those muscles. Look at the muscles. I want to see your muscles. Okay? God gives power and strength to his people. Let's try it all together. God gives power and strength to his people. Now, in your pretend Bibles, that's found in Psalm 68, verse 35. So, I thank you for trying to learn your memory verse. And I want to read to you some things about heaven. It says, I want to go to God's heaven. So won't you come along with me? I can pet the baby lions right upon a branch of a tree. I can listen to the songbirds as they light right upon my hand and my head. I can even talk to them, for they will hear and understand. I can fly up to Mount Zion and pick flowers that will bring cheer. Colors will never, never fade. I'll give them to my mother dear. I can ride the neck of giraffes. Look at her on the giraffe. And they will never run away. They will be my favorite pets as I go to the field to play. I can talk to all the angels, and they will talk right back to me. They will tell me many stories. I'll be happy as can be. I can travel real fast through space and see the worlds that God has made. It will be such a happy time, and I will never be afraid. I can skip and run with others and never once get tired or sick. And my home will be a mansion. How I wish Jesus would come quick. I can play in heaven's waters and look at the big tree of life. God's heaven will be so peaceful, there will be no more trouble or strife. Strife is another word for trouble. I can join the angels' chorus as we sing praises to our King, and I will never, never cry, for happiness is everything. I'll sit at the banquet table along with friends and families. We'll all thank Jesus for the food that grows on heaven's vines and trees. Best of all, I'll be with Jesus. I will place a kiss on his cheek. I will show him how I love him every single day of the week. Now I can just dream of heaven, for all these things I then will see. Yes, I want to go with Jesus. So won't you come along with me? I so want to go to heaven, and I want you to be with me. So I know Jakey's watching, and I know that some of you are watching also, and I thank you for watching us on Sabbath, and I hope you have a happy Sabbath. And remember, God gives power and strength to his people. See you next week. Bye.
Today's memory verse is, "This man is my chosen instrument." Acts 9:15. And happy Sabbath, everybody. Bye.
Imagine not being able to see anything. Everything is dark. You know it is day or night only by what other people tell you. For 3 days, Saul could not see anything. Saul sat quietly in Judas's house. He did not look at all fearsome or masterful. He was not the take-charge person he had been only 3 days ago. He sat quietly, his head bowed. He spent all of his time praying. There was so much to pray for. Saul had certainly prayed for forgiveness. He was horrified when he thought of the Christians he had persecuted. And he also thanked and praised the Lord again and again for his salvation. The memory of having Jesus call to him on the road to Damascus still thrilled him. He lived the moment over and over in his mind. Judas and his family offered Saul food to eat, but he would not take it. In fact, he would not even take anything to drink. Finally, they just left him alone with his thoughts. The news spread quickly through Damascus. Saul had arrived. Saul, the mighty hunter of Christians. The believers had heard he was coming, but now he was here. But it was said he was sitting in Judas's house. Rumor had it that he had somehow been struck blind. People learned that he had been led into the city like a child. Something strange had certainly occurred, but no one was quite sure what. 3 days had gone by since Saul's encounter with the Lord. Then Ananias, a follower of Jesus, had a vision. The Lord appeared to him and said, "Get up and go to Straight Street. Find the house of Judas. Ask for a man named Saul who is from the city of Tarshish. He is there now, praying. Saul is blind. He has seen you in a vision. You will go to him, pray, and lay your hands on him. Then he will see again." Ananias was understandably nervous. "Lord," he answered, "many people have told me about this man. He has done terrible things to your people in Jerusalem, and now he has come here to Damascus. The leading priests have given him power to arrest anyone who worships you." The Lord reassured Ananias, "Do not worry. Go. I have chosen Saul for an important work," he said. "He must tell people about me. He will tell kings, Jews, and people of foreign lands about my love for everyone." Ananias obeyed the Lord. As he walked to Judas's house on Straight Street, he may have looked around. Everything looked quite normal. Ananias shook his head. Everything was really far from normal. He had just had a vision from the Lord, and he was on his way to meet the dreaded Saul, whom the Lord said was now a believer. Ananias found Judas's house. He found Saul sitting quietly and without sight, waiting for him. Ananias was filled with compassion. He laid his hands on Saul. "Brother Saul," he said, "the Lord Jesus sent me. He sent me so you can see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit." Immediately, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes. He could see again, and Saul asked to be baptized at once. He did not even take time to eat or drink. Yes, God had called Saul, and he had called Ananias too. They served the Lord for the rest of their lives. Today, God has called you to be his witness. Will you choose to listen?
Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble, or hardship, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? As it is written, "For your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors, through him who loved us." Romans 8:35-37. Happy Sabbath!
Happy Sabbath, Junior family. We are on lesson 7. Now, we've been through the champions of faith. We went through the story of Job and we went through the story of Abram. And now we're going to go into the story of Joseph. And really, it was his life story that we're going to study today. The title of the lesson is called "In a Pit, in Prison, or in a Palace." Now, the story for today shows us, and the PowerPoint says, that God still blesses even when Satan puts obstacles in the way. So it's like this paper towel roll, which is representative of God, and these books represent the problems that come upon us. Now, God is big enough to sustain all the problems that we have in life, but this piece of paper represents us, or Joseph, right? So the beauty of the story of Joseph is that Joseph took time to spend with God. And I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to mold it into the shape of the paper towel roll. And that's what we do. When we spend time with God, we're taking on his character, we're taking on his disposition, and we take on his power to overcome any obstacle that happens in life. So Joseph, even though he went through so many difficult times, when he was on his own, if we are on our own, we would never be able to withstand any of the temptations that come. But because he molded and allowed God to mold his character, Joseph was strong, or showed faith in the pit. He still had faith and trust in God in prison, and even his faith was strong while he was in the palace. Happy Sabbath, Junior family, and I hope we learn that we need to be molded by God in order to sustain any difficult time.
God's story, Joseph. So part of God's story is about a guy named Joseph, and it begins like this. Once there was a guy named Joseph who had 10 older brothers and one younger one. When Joe was a boy, he was his dad's favorite. In fact, his dad liked him so much better than his brothers that he gave Joe a special gift to prove it. You can imagine this made his brothers jealous. And Joe only made things worse. He told his brothers about dreams he had where he was ruling over them. Well, this made Joe's brothers furious. One day they were working and saw Joe coming. They said, "Here comes that dreamer." They threw Joe into a dark pit. They might have left him there forever, but they met some men traveling from Egypt and sold Joe to them as a servant instead. They thought that was slightly nicer than leaving him in a pit. Then they went home and told their father Joe had been killed by a wild animal. This broke their dad's heart. Kids, these brothers were really bad news. Selling a sibling is never a good idea. Ever. But the Bible says the Lord was with Joe. When Joe was a servant, he worked for a really important rich guy named Potiphar. And Potiphar liked Joe so much, he put him in charge of the whole house. Joe was happy until one day he was blamed for something he didn't do, and Potiphar sent him straight to jail. Well, God was still with Joe, even in prison. The guard decided he liked Joe so much, he put him in charge of all the other prisoners. Then God gave Joe special knowledge about dreams. When two prisoners had dreams, Joe knew what they meant, so he told them. 2 years later, Egypt's ruler called Pharaoh had a dream, and nobody knew what it meant. But by now, one of the two prisoners Joe had helped was out of jail and working for Pharaoh. He told Pharaoh about Joe, and God helped Joe figure out what Pharaoh's dream meant. But Pharaoh's dream was really more of a nightmare. It meant that everybody in Egypt would have food for 7 years, then be hungry for 7 years. Joe told Pharaoh the only way to survive was to store food during the 7 good years. Well, Pharaoh thought Joe's idea was brilliant. He put him in charge. During the 7 hungry years, nobody could eat without getting food from Joe. He was like a human vending machine. Well, remember how Joe had 11 brothers? Like everybody else, they had to get food from Joe. And when they came, they didn't even recognize their brother. But Joe knew who they were. He secretly tested them to see if they changed. After all, they did throw him in a pit and sell him. Finally, he couldn't hide who he was from his brothers anymore. He told everyone to leave the room because he was about to cry. After sobbing for a few minutes, he told them, "I'm your brother Joseph. I'm the one you sold." The brothers couldn't believe it. They had hurt Joe, but God had taken care of him during the good times and the bad. Even with everything they had done to Joe, he forgave them because he was willing to follow God, even when it was hard. Joe told them, "You planned to harm me, but God planned it for good." And God used Joe to save many lives, including the family that was part of God's special rescue plan. And that's the story of Joseph.
Good morning, church. Today's memory text is, "By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth." Psalms 33, verse 6. Happy Sabbath!
Hello, my early teens. How are you? Well, I hope. Well, first I want to thank Aaliyah, who just reminded us what this week's memory verse was all about. Thank you, Aaliyah. So, this week we studied lesson number 7, which focuses on creation, and it is entitled, "The Way It All Began." Now, Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, tells us a beautiful yet simple and easy to understand account of how God created the world and all that it contains. The animals, plants, trees, mountains, rivers, and the crowning jewel of creation, man and woman. Now, obviously, none of us were there, right? So we didn't see what happened. And if we go by the limited tenet of seeing is believing, then we may have a hard time believing in the creation story, right? As a matter of fact, for centuries, people tried to come up, or they actually came up with theories to explain how everything began. And those theories, they all left God out of the picture. But those theories don't really stand up to scientific reasoning because they all rely on chance and impossible odds. Now let's do a little experiment. Here on the table, I have 10 coins and I have numbered them all. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I've put them all in this very noisy pot, and what I'm going to try to do is to pull them out in order from 1 to 10. Let's see what happens. 10. Starting wrong already. 5. 9. Why? 1. 7. This is not working out. 8. Oh, I'm not looking. 4. That was an important part that I don't look. 3, so I'm not choosing them. And 6. Oh, one more. And that one was 2. Now, I think even if I tried again, which I don't have the time to do, it would be impossible for me to get them in the right order. As a matter of fact, it would take me a billion tries before I actually could get it in order. And that's just 10 coins. Imagine we try this experiment with 100 coins or 1,000 or 1,000,000, then our probabilities are even less. Downright impossible, right? So why believe that us being created and the world coming together is all the result of chance, right? Now, if the chance of something this simple as randomly pulling out 10 pennies is so small, the probability is so small, how is it possible that the entire world and everything in it would be the result of chance? That's impossible. So instead of theories based on impossible odds and billions of variation happening in impossible ways based purely on chance, we as Christians believe in a God who loved us so much that he created us, and he created us in his image, and he created an entire world which we can enjoy. Now here's a short video that you can enjoy.
What's up? How you doing? What's going on? All right. Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Jordan. Good to see you again. So check it out. Have you ever gone to one of those furniture stores where once you take it all home, you gotta put it together yourself? So recently, I bought this huge bookshelf to put together in my living room. This is not one of those simple pieces like a table you just screw on the legs. No, this was complex, okay? You got all these different size shelves and legs and parts that a lot of them look the same kind of measurements. And as you're reading through the instruction manual, you gotta be able to understand Egyptian hieroglyphics. This is complicated stuff. In any case, I'm trying to piece this thing together, and more than an hour into it, I realized that all the pieces I fit together already were the wrong pieces, man. So I had to take these pieces apart, unscrew these legs from where they were, put them together on the other side. At the end of it, it all got done. It looks beautiful. It's sitting in my living room right now. You should come over and see it. But it was a process. So this story points us in a way to the big idea for today, which is that God spoke and he created everything perfectly. See, unlike me with the bookshelf, God knew exactly his plan from the get-go. He spoke everything exactly as he wanted it to be without having to revisit things or make mistakes along the way. His will was perfect and it was executed perfectly. So right now we're going to be examining a story that's described in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 to 25. You might have heard these words before. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So right from the get-go, there's something fascinating in here. Just the words "in the beginning" indicate to us that before existence as we know it came into being, God already was. That's mind-blowing. So picture this with me, if you will. Absolutely nothing in existence. No earth, no sun, no moon, no stars, no nothing. We can't fathom that, even as hard as we try. The scripture describes that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters, but even that, we have to wonder what that would look like without there being physical structure, without there being something for the water to be contained within. This is beyond our capacity to understand. Let's jump back into verse 3. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. And that was day one. Light and darkness, night and day, God simply spoke them into existence. He is that powerful, he's that creative, he is that in control or that sovereign that all he needs to do is speak it and it is. So next, God spoke and created a distance between the waters above and the waters below, the clouds and the seas, and that was day 2. Next, God spoke to gather the waters into one place so that dry ground would appear, and he said, "This is good." Next, God spoke to create all different types of vegetation. Think about how much variety there is when it comes to plant life. Let's focus in even just on fruits and vegetables. We got some apples, oranges, bananas, tomatoes, watermelon, honeydew. It's amazing. And that was day 3. Next, God spoke, are you beginning to see a pattern here? To create the sun, the moon, the stars. Think for a moment of how powerful he is to speak those things into existence. The sun, I'm talking about, which is a source of light, heat, and life for our entire solar system. He just spoke and it was. And that was day 4. Next, God spoke to create birds in the sky and fish and creatures in the water. So on the one hand, you got your parrots, your toucans, your peacocks, your snow owls. And on the other hand, we got clams, sea urchins, dolphins, whales, hammerhead sharks. You ever go to an aquarium and see some of the amazing life that there is in the water? God created all of that on day 5. Next, God spoke to create all the animals on the dry land. Your chipmunks, your orangutans, your antelopes and gazelles. Cool horns coming out their heads. It's so creative. Anyway, you get the idea. God created all of that and said, it is good. So as we ponder all this, think about the fact that all God had to do was speak and all of these amazing things came into existence. That's incredible. So to summarize everything, God spoke. He was the only creative source he needed to make our creation perfect. And thirdly, he is awesome. So it's important to note this. There are many different camps that people might fall into when it comes to their understanding around this creation story. Some might believe that these are actual literal days in which God created everything. Others might say that one day actually represents maybe 1,000 years or some longer period of time. And others still might say that, no, this is not literal, this is more poetry, just to help us understand in a general sense God's creativity and his power as he brought life into the world. But no matter which view you take, I think we can agree on this. God did it, and he created our world perfectly. So as you walk outside and you go about your day, today, tomorrow, whenever, open your eyes, be aware, take a look at the sun, the moon, the stars, the vegetation, the grass you're walking on, and appreciate the fact that God has created this thing in an amazing way. Be reminded of today's big idea. God spoke, and he created everything perfectly. That's it for this week. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Let's meet on Zoom at 1 p.m. so that we can discuss this subject further. See you soon.
And that was our Sabbath School lesson review for this week. Now parents, remember you have a little time between now and the 11 a.m. service, Children's Sabbath service, where you can review the lesson with your children, okay? If you're interested, go to miamitemple.org and there you'll find the lessons for all the classes of our children, okay? We'll see you guys next week. Happy Sabbath. Bye.
Through every storm of life, I know you're by my side, so I am holding on. You are the God who holds my future, all my dreams. So I am holding on. You never let go of me. You gave me hope when hope was all but gone. A second chance to sing a brand new song. You opened up my eyes to see. You rescued me. Rescued me. You showed the way when there was no way out. Cleared up my mind when you erased all doubt. You made me strong when I was weak. You rescued me. Rescued me. Through every storm of life, I know you're by my side. So I am holding on to your promises. You are the God who holds my future, all my dreams. So I am holding on. You'll never let go of me. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! You are my God. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! You are my God.
You're watching Miami Temple Kids.